I forgot my cup. Oh well.
Oh well. You bring a football over?
Oh my god!
Ben
The
Hur's.
original Batman!
Ben Hur's pretty scary. Oh no, it's May the 4th! Star Wars is up there.
Oh yeah, that's a good point. That's a good point. That's a good point. May the 4th be with you. Welcome back to the channel, everyone. This is the official third episode of Spirit Box Sessions. Welcome to the channel if you don't know me. My name is Sophia. I run this channel. I am a film major, English minor. My interest and what I studied was extreme cinema, international cinema, and horror cinema. Thank you.
Cool. And I'm Emily. I am Sophia's older sister. I study a lot in criminology and psychology. Also very passionate about horror movies. And we come together to talk about our favorite horror movies and, you know, from a little bit more of like an academic, researchy type lens to share that with you guys. So our movie that we picked for this week is Children of the Corn, but the 1984 version, because it has been remade twice.
11 times.
11 times?
Or I should say, there is 11 films in this series.
Holy cow.
I think 4 or 5 of them are remakes or something like that.
Really?
Something crazy like that.
Okay, well the most recent remake was in 2023, so this year, that's when it came out. So that's kind of what like prompted us to go back and be like, let's go to the OG, which is, you know, obviously the best one. But I gotta say, no offense to like anyone out here, but like the kids they chose to cast as background kids in that movie are so ugly.
No, that's so sad.
Like they're just like blurry in the distance, and I'm like, first of all, that is not like an under 18 or 19-year-old kid, and then second of all, like, that's what you went with.
As a casual background actor, some days, I died when all the kids are just like holding their like weapons and they're like, no, because when the director gives you a prop, you're like, what do I do with this? You're like,
You turn into like an NPC in a video game.
Where do I? You're like holding it. They're like, can you hold it normally? And you're like,
and drink out of it normally, and you're like,
you suddenly can't. It's like, can you mime eating food? And you're like, sure.
yeah, exactly.
Alright.
Oh man.
Anyway,
if you don't know, Children of the Corn is based off of a Stephen King novella. So if you don't have this book, this is The Night Shift, and it's got like a collection of all of Stephen King's novellas, and Children of the Corn is in it. However, you have to be mindful of the date. I think books after 1978 include Children of the Corn. Interesting fact there. But to do a quick summary of the movie, Isaac, who's a boy preacher, and his right-hand man Malachi, get the children from Gatlin, Nebraska to murder every adult that's in their town. So not all the children want to participate. Specifically, there's Job and Sarah, 2 really cute kids that, you know, hide out in a house and don't want to participate. Simultaneously, a young couple, Bert and Vicky, are on a road trip and they stop in Gatlin to report a murder because they accidentally hit a boy who's standing in the middle of the road and decide, oh shoot, like, you know, we gotta do something here. So they seek help in this town, but the town seems deserted. They are soon trapped in Gatlin with a little chance of getting out alive. Malachi finds Vicky in the house with Sarah, and with the help of the other kids, takes her and brings her to the cornfield. She is strapped to a corn crucifix to be sacrificed, and then there's like a little bit of like a chase scene here, but Bert finds Vicky with the help of Job and Sarah and rescues her and the children while the devil kills Malachi and Isaac, and before he decides that he needs to burn down the cornfield to fulfill the prophecy. So, nice short sweet snippet of the events. I think the runtime's like 93 minutes, so it's a lot of atmosphere, I would say. Not a whole lot of character development. This is more your your forte, but it's a very clean story, which makes sense because the novella is only like 25 pages long. So
exactly. Also, so Stephen King wrote the story.
Yeah.
And then, I don't remember the name of the director, so forgive me, I didn't write it down. The director basically went to Stephen King and was like, you don't know how to write for film, so we're going to change the whole story, actually. So, these questions that we're going to talk about more pertain to the film. I'm sure Stephen King did have a vision, and, like, I have, like, a point about that, too, but mostly we are talking about the director's vision, not Stephen King's, because the director changed a lot. Can I spoil the ending of the book? Do you care?
Yeah, go for it.
Okay, so in the ending of the book, in Stephen King's book, the two
Bert and Vicky.
They actually Vicky dies on the cross.
Oh, okay, gotcha.
And I think somebody else, either Isaac or Malachi, kill Bert.
Oh, okay.
Or something happens, so they actually die. But the director was like, nah.
Yeah.
Like, I can't put that on film.
Yeah.
So she changed the whole thing. And
I mean, it does make for, like, a more, like, wholesome, like, kind of, you know, happy-go-lucky ending. I get that for sure. Is that super horror-y? Not really. So I get that too. Yeah.
Right. So that's why I want to, like, distinguish when we say Stephen King, we're talking about themes in his book that did make it to the movie, but that's where it stops, because the remainder of the story, the new story in the movie that we see in the movie is more like the director and the other screenwriter, whoever changed the script. Anyway,
Totally.
Okay,
Yeah.
Right, I had to clarify, because if you haven't read the novella, it's very, very different from the movie.
Yeah.
Great. Right, what do you guys want to talk about?
All right. Do you want to start us off with a theme? I've got a couple of themes here. But did you want to start off with a theme?
Well, I think that of what I'm seeing, it looks like we have a very, very, very similar thought.
Mm-hmm.
And I think we're just going to get into it because it's probably the main theme in this. It's the church, religion,
Yeah.
I think is the most prominent thing discussed.
Totally.
Christianity, perhaps maybe anti-Christianity,
Mm-hmm.
maybe, perhaps.
Yeah, so one thing that is hugely evident through this whole movie is obviously religion. So Christianity versus paganism. So Isaac, he's like a boy prodigy, and he's a preacher. So he's bringing this faith to the people of Gatlin. And even on the radio, when Bert and Vicky are driving through Gatlin, there's a commentary on who has a room, which is like a sermon from a preacher that's taking place on the radio. So like, there's no room for fornicators, and they're like, no, or homosexuals, no. And then the couple adds like, people who watch colored television and graduates and commitment. So they're obviously making fun of it, but the idea is like, there's all these people that are not able to join the religion because they don't fit into the box of what's supposed to be like, how you are supposed to conduct yourself as a quote-unquote Christian. And like, there's more allusions from the preacher, only by the blood of the Lamb are we saved, right? And the Lamb, if we're going like through Christianity, folklore is associated with children, which makes sense because it's like this child cult who's killed all the adults, and on the 19th birthday these kids are sacrificing themselves to he who walks behind the rose, which is like their god. So those are kind of like the main points that even like in the background you hear that are going on.
Yeah, absolutely. I think this is a really important time in cinema and in the world, really. Like, if you think about the 60s, 70s, there was no, like, in small town America, what did the town revolve around, right? The church.
I mean, it's still
still prominently, right?
Yeah.
And even like within, I wrote down, one of the opening shots is the framing of the church seen through like corn stalks, like through a voyeuristic, like the audience voyeuristic perspective. And I think that really, like, that's a great start to how this is going. Like, we see the church, but in an ominous perspective, right? So it's like that subverts things right there. In small town America, you think of the church as a safe haven, your faith, whatever, but this whole movie really takes so many aspects of what we are comfortable with and what we understand as the church and like this whatever, and says they're gonna do all these things, but there's like something off. And it really puts into perspective how easy it is to classify things as a cult, to kind of segue into that.
Yeah. And I think that's a really good point to bring up, because this is not a Christian, quote unquote, movie. This is like, it critiques the Christian faith. It critiques a lot of religion. And there's two quotes that Bert says. The first one is, so he goes to the church and they're doing this 19th birthday celebration, sacrifice. And he says, are you rewriting the whole thing related to the Bible or just the parts that suit your needs? Which, I mean, nowadays, if we're looking at how religion is being used in our world, it's very clear to see that, people want to take from the Bible what they feel aligns with what their beliefs are, right? Which is like all over, I mean, Canadian and American like news and media, right? So that's one thing that absolutely right there. He's critiquing the fact of like, you have a whole book that's written by your faith and you're only taking the parts that really kind of emphasize or further your own message that you want to send to the world.
Exactly. Oh, my favorite. You ever see those like Instagram reels of people walking down the street and they're like, they read like a sentence from the Old Testament and they're like, and there's always that like conservative guy that's like, yeah, absolutely, man. And then he's like, what about this one? He's like, nah. And he's like, well, that's actually like a page later. And
Damn.
he's like, nah,
that's not me. That's not me. Wow.
Okay.
Wow.
Anyway, that's just a little rant. I find them funny.
Yeah.
I'm like, yeah. Really using our brains there, guys.
But then to further, the second quote from Bert as well is, he makes a very strong critique to Isaac and Malachi, and he says, any religion without love and compassion is false. It's a lie. And I was like, whoa, that's a pretty profound thing to put in a horror movie, right? For like the context of it.
It absolutely is.
Because I was even thinking about this in the sense of like, in Canada, we have our history of what we did to the Indigenous people in the genocide that took place. And unfortunately, not a lot of people know about it in terms of like teaching that history, no matter the amount of truth and reconciliation commissions that are done and the sort of reconciliation initiatives that are put forward by people. I mean, the government's not doing a whole lot, or politicians as well. So that was really important for me to see in this movie, just because of the amount of books that are like Five Little Indians, Seven Fallen Feathers. They talk about the fact that Indigenous kids had to be put into residential schools. This was something that the RCMP did, and these schools were run by Protestants, Anglicans, Catholics, Christians. And these kids were abused physically, sexually, emotionally. They were neglected. The health conditions were so poor. But yet, these are religions, So he's critiquing their religion as, any religion without love and compassion is false, it's a lie. But then, like, looking back or looking at our current religions, like, there's no difference. Like, that's not love and compassion that you were treating these Indigenous kids with. Like, so that's a lie, no?
No, exactly. That I absolutely, like, something that this kind of jogged up in my memory. I actually went and I looked up when the Jim Jones the murder-suicide took place. Because I'm like, there was some parts that reminded me of a documentary that I watched, so I thought it was really interesting. So if you didn't know, obviously Jim Jones, he was a cult leader. Who did he leave? What was his cult name?
Oh, Heaven. Something's Heaven, right?
I don't think it was. No, that wasn't Heaven's Gate.
Oh, not else. Heaven's Gate.
Those were the UFO guys.
I don't remember.
I don't remember. Anyway, it was called the Jonestown Massacre. 900 people were killed in a mass murder-suicide where they, the famous phrase, they drank the Kool-Aid and it was poisoned and they all died.
That was Heaven's Gate.
Was it Heaven's Gate? I thought Heaven's Gate was something else. It was like the UFOs were coming and then they all died in their like white sneakers.
Oh, maybe not.
Yeah. Suicided in like a bunk. Anyway, totally something else. Mm-hmm. If you know the cult name, leave it down below.
I don't know. Bunch of cults. Somebody's gonna join whatever one gets the most likes.
Okay, I guess. So that happened in 1978. This novella was first published in 1977, which is so crazy because the timing is so crazy.
Yeah.
And then, really quick side note, because I watched a video recently, and then I was like, this is insane. So he wrote under a pseudonym, Richard Bachman, for a time being, and Stephen King actually requested some of his books to go out of print because they predicted like real world events before they happened.
Oh, that's creepy.
So there was a famous one, and darn it, I wish I remembered the name, and I didn't have time to go back and like rewatch the documentary and find exactly where I was, but it was also a novella, and it was about a school shooter who kills kids and then shoots the teachers or keeps the kids hostage, something crazy like that. And it was like really similar to a case that happened in America a couple years later.
Oh, wow.
Where it was like a school shooter credited it, but like it was a whole thing. It was a whole situation. But there was also a book that referenced something similar to 9/11. So the fact that Stephen King is writing these things before they are happening is nuts. Yeah. It's bonkers to me. That's insane. And then the fact that Jonestown happens a year after this is published. But I also think like the reason why this stood out is because like in the Jonestown Massacre, like you read about the kids and their experiences.
Yeah.
And how like in the tapes, which are traumatizing, and don't listen to them. But like you hear the kids in the background and they're like, no, like mom, no, dad, like please don't, like they don't want to drink the Kool-Aid. And like it's the innocence. And it's so sad. Like these kids are so easily influenced and they don't have the autonomy. And then a movie like this, where you're like flipping it, these kids still don't have the autonomy. They're just under more evil kids.
Yeah.
Right? Like they don't actually want to drink the Kool-Aid. They don't actually want to commit mass murder. But Malachi and Isaac, or Mr. Jim Jones, is telling them to. And it's like, it's just so like, the parallels were creepy and I hated it.
Yeah, no, but that's a good point, because I think in the movie that plays with that too, like what you're talking about, because children are seen as innocent, right? That's pretty across the board.
Right.
But in this movie, the kids are the evil ones, because they're the ones that killed all the adults. But then you've got Job and his sister, Sarah, who aren't. They go against that.
Yeah.
They purposely do everything against what Malachi says, so they still have their childhood innocence still preserved. So it's still like flip-flops in that innocence department.
Right, exactly.
Yeah.
And they even play with like that gift of sight thing too, that a lot of these like cult leaders tend to have. Well, Sarah can go off and do, play with the music and play with the toys because she has the sight.
Yeah.
Right? And I think that's really interesting too, because I think that's what the Heaven's Gate guy said he had, where he could like talk, where he could sense the UFOs coming or something like that.
Gotcha, yeah.
But like, they're given the special treatment. So it's just so interesting. It's so interesting.
So I guess the biggest question I have for you, just in related to religion, is this, what they portray in this movie, is this a religion or is this a cult?
Well, I actually had a really similar question that I was going to ask you.
Oh, geez. So what are your thoughts on that then.
Okay, here's my situation. Because I believe that all religions are cults.
That's fair. Okay.
That's my personal belief.
Yeah.
I don't classify myself as part of a religion.
Fair. Yeah.
But what makes a cult different from a religion? That's what I need to know, because it seems like you have a leader, you have a belief system, you have rituals or activities that you do as a community, either for the deity that you're worshipping,
Yeah,
yes, right,
yeah.
or for the community or the representative. So what makes something a cult?
And so the only thing I can think of would be, if it's a cult, and my friend always says this, if it's a cult, the leader is still alive.
Oh, really? Oh, is that how that would be?
That's,
classified?
again, that's not confirmed, for sure, not.
Okay.
But if you're looking at like the Charles Manson family, Heaven's Gate, these are all people,
Right.
and these are all people that follow this leader, savior, someone that they believe is like the savior of this. So, based on that alone, irregardless of the amount of like Bible quotes they throw in throughout the movie and all that, I think this is a religion. Because Isaac is a preacher, right? They still believe in a God, and the God is he who walks behind the rows, right? He still, at the end of the day, does not have any sort of power over who gets to live, who gets to die. They have to make sacrifices to this God. So that's my 2 cents on why I see it as a religion and not cults. But again, I'm also not a part of any religion. Like, I'm recently transitioning to paganism, so like it was really interesting to kind of see that discussion in here. But that would be more of a spirituality. I think there's no organized church or religion or doctrine or books for that, really.
Yeah, that's fair. Yeah. I mean, in your definition, it would make sense to call it a religion. I think people also associate cult with acts of violence or acts of like
Totally.
something else, which is why I'm also like, well, they committed a mass murder to start the religion.
True.
But isn't that what the Catholics did too?
Every religion has.
Wasn't there like a massive crusade? So I'm like,
yeah, exactly. I'm pretty sure every religion has started off with that. Like, honestly, the best way to divide people is religion, because people are just going to be killing each other over religion and who they believe is right and who they believe is God or not God or spiritual, whatever. Whatever you believe is totally fine and it's totally up to you. But with that comes the responsibility of understanding that there is a history of people killing each other over religion, right? That's just, it's pretty straightforward there.
Yeah, so then by that definition then, if we're going off of like acts of murder or whatever, that would back up my point of that every religion is a cult, because I'm going to say all the religions that I know of, perhaps there are others that don't start in a crusade or a mass killing.
Fair enough.
Start like that. So I have a really hard time making that distinction where, yeah,
no, that's fair.
Yeah.
And again, I alluded to Bible verses. There is, right at the very end, Isaac quotes from Revelations 20:10. And the devil who deceived them was thrown into the lake of burning sulfur, where the beast and the false prophet had been thrown. They will be tormented day and night forever and ever. So, if you don't know, Book of Revelations is the final book of the New Testament. And it's basically the apocalypse, right? Meaning the unveiling or the revelation. And it's the book of Revelation, which is the only apocalyptic book in the New Testament. And basically it's saying that good will triumph over evil, which is pretty ironic that Isaac is saying this to his followers when, we could argue that he's probably the evil one out of the group. It's not well, in this case, it is good triumphing over evil, but he was the evil one that needed to be gotten rid of, right?
I have another question for you.
Yeah.
So I can go into my little cinematography talk.
Go for it.
I saw this in a Reddit thread when I was researching this film because Reddit is valid.
Cite your sources, Reddit.
I study culturally.
I mean, yeah, there's a lot of qualitative research you could do on Reddit.
Yes. But I did find a thread that I found interesting, and it was talking about Children of the Corn, and somebody asked, is this actually a horror movie? Would you classify this film as a horror movie? And I will answer that cinematically. But what do you think?
No, I think that's a great question. But no, I don't think this is a horror movie. I think this is a social commentary, right? Because we keep bringing up the fact about religion, right? And how a lot of the conversations they were having in the movie still apply today, which is, I find, absolutely true. But like, there was an article that I came across too, and in 1984, when the movie came out, this was actually a period of a farm crisis in the States. So this was deemed as like the dark period of agriculture in the States because of the impeding threat of communism, or, you know, how they thought that this was going to work out very geopolitically. But there was a lot of problems in terms of crops and cultivating crops and keeping crops, and, you know, the industrialization of crops versus like small town farmers. So this is very much, and I'm a firm believer that all horror movies have some sort of cultural or socio-cultural significance.
100%.
So no, I don't find this as a horror movie. I find that this is like a critique of the world that was happening at that time.
You know what? That's a totally fair point from that sort of perspective.
Yeah.
Yeah. I agree too. Mostly, and like the other thing too is, I know obviously this was a shoestring budget. We were just talking about this before. A lot had to be cut out, and like a lot of gore and special effects and like epic killing scenes had to be left out because they didn't have the budget for that sort of thing. So those horror elements had to get cut, and more story and, you know, those elements came through,
Totally.
which in return gives a more
like that socio-cultural commentary, yeah.
Yeah.
But also, I don't think it needed like the special effects.
No, I don't think it did either.
In this case, yeah.
Yeah. So.
But from like a cinematic view, how are you thinking about it?
So I actually, if you're just looking at it cinematically, it uses the same tropes as a horror film.
Totally, yeah. For
So, if you're just looking at the way it's filmed, you can classify it as a horror film.
Yeah.
It's called something, the isolated terror, and we're talking about like the rural town terror. Small town, you're surrounded by corn. Wrote here, the way it's shot makes civilization seem so distant. Isolated terror is like the use of extreme close-ups. So anytime they like have a close-up on the Skype, is that how you say it? Scythe. Yeah. Anytime they have that, anytime they have it on a weapon, when you get that car crash, when he hits the car, it's like a wide shot, extreme close-up, smash, extreme close-up. Like, that's the isolation that you're getting. In a lot of horror films specifically use those extreme close-ups to create that tension in the viewer. So technically speaking, it does count as a horror.
Which makes sense, yeah, you're right. Cinematography-wise, yeah, for sure. And, like, it's classified as a horror on IMDb. It's, like, you know, people talk about Children of the Corn as being a horror movie. The fact that they've redone it so many times, you know, they're trying to put a different spin, a spookier spin, a whatever spin. But, again, I still feel at the end of the day, like, this is just a social commentary. And even when you were talking about earlier when Stephen King was writing under his pseudonym, and he was, like, almost like prophesizing things that were going to happen. Like, these are still things that had happened. So is that really horror? Well, I mean, okay, it's a little spooky that he was writing about it before it happened, but these are things that happen in real life. You know, this is real life. Yeah, it's scary, but there's people out there doing these things.
Yeah, 100%. Yeah, that's why, like, horror's so hard to dissect sometimes because it's like, is this, we were talking about The Purge in the episode, is like when we were talking about, is this actually dystopian?
Yeah.
Is this actually horror? Like, this is happening today. Like, how do you classify that?
I guess the last theme, though, related to all of this, too, and why I see this as a social commentary is, like, the fact that he who walks behind the rose is this, like, very crudely photoshopped and, like, animated, like, pixelated blob that, like, eats them. But, like, during the course of the movie, like, obviously we see that at the end, it's the vegetation itself. Like, the corn bends, right? It beckons and demands a sacrifice. It's a living force. But if we're looking again at the context of the fact that this was like a dark period of agriculture in the States at that time, then we can take a little bit of a look on like the commentary of farming, right? Because around this time we're getting industrialization. Well, we've gotten industrialization over the course of forever, but the industrialized food system over like surplus cultivation, how we're distributing food to everyone, the more machines that are needed to do farming, right? It's kind of a commentary on that too, like corn in this case is a living force. It's abundance, it's fertility, right? We need these things to live, and if that's threatened, well, that's a big problem.
Yeah, I think Stephen King knew what he was doing with that one. And
for sure.
I think that's good.
Mm-hmm.
I know he's criticized a lot, but he knows what he's doing.
He's a smart cookie.
Here's a question for you. Out of all Stephen King books that you've read,
Ooh.
which one would you either want to see readapted or just adapted to the screen?
Yeah, this answer might surprise you.
Okay.
Because it's never been done in a movie before.
Okay.
It's a book by Stephen King called Rose Madder.
Oh yeah, you like this book.
I've told you about this book so many times. I think it's so phenomenally written and the context of it. So like maybe we can talk about this, or maybe I can connect it to a different movie. But the premise is around domestic violence and how you would kind of interact with that sort of experience and how the characters kind of interact with each other. There's a lot of like hard emotion that you have to go through when you're reading this book. I don't know how well it would translate to a movie. That's my only concern, because the book I find was so well written and I fell in love with the writing style that way. But I think it would have to be that book, and I highly recommend it. Yeah.
That's awesome.
How about you?
This one might be an unpopular opinion, but hear me out.
This is a safe space.
Hear me out. So my favorite Stephen King book is Misery.
Okay, classic, okay. Yeah.
I've seen Misery. I've seen the movie.
Yeah.
Kathy Bates.
Amazing.
Mwah.
Yeah, she's
Love
awesome.
her. Love her. Love the acting. I don't remember the guy, but the guy was in... What do you know? Elf. He's in Elf. He's dad in Elf.
Oh, yeah, that's
He's
right.
That's how I remember it.
That's right.
But I can't remember his actor name. I apologize. So, hear me out. 2023 version of Misery. Kathy Bates reprises her role.
Damn.
However, we get like modern cinematography.
Yeah.
I know it's a classic, and I think that it's really well done, but I would die for a modern version.
Yeah, I think that'd be really cool, actually. Yeah.
Because there's a lot that happens in the book that I think we have like the intensity for now to like really bring it to... Yeah.
That'd be cool. Oh, Kathy Bates is so good.
She is good.
Yeah,
That's why I was like, I would love her to
good.
come back. She could come back and reprise her. She could come back.
Of course,
No.
yeah.
No, come back.
Yeah. I mean, she's doing Merge Mansion ads, you know? She's bored.
Come on back. Come on, do Misery. We need you, girl.
We can hashtag this Merge Mansion. So we can get some
So you can see Kathy.
promo into it. Hilarious.
Oh my god.
You have any fun facts for us?
Honestly, I was back and forth, and I think I'm only gonna give us 2 today.
That's okay.
You know what? I don't have any.
two.
I don't have any Twilight fun things, and like I had to dig for these. IMDb was so boring. It was just like, this happened. I'm like, Snorefest, right?
Fair enough.
Anyway,
Fair enough.
I don't know. Maybe you saw this upon your research. So if you don't, this is gonna be a really crappy fun facts. I'll just cut it out. How old do you think John Franklin was when he played Isaac?
Oh my god, he looked like such an old man in this movie.
Right?
Yeah. Oh, he's gotta be in his 30s. Is that right?
It's wrong.
Oh, how old was he?
He's 23.
No, he was not.
But I just think it's so crazy because he looks like, you're right, he's in
He
his
looks haggard.
30s. Guess how young he was supposed to be playing.
Oh, like probably because they're killing kids at 19, so he's probably some like boy prodigy at like 14.
You're close.
Yeah.
You're close. He's supposed to be 12.
Okay, that was my second guess actually.
Yeah. He's playing 10 years younger than himself.
11
But he
years.
looks like he's 40. Mind you, like, I know he had, there's like a disability, forgive me, I don't know what it's called, but he doesn't grow.
Oh, well now I feel bad. Why'd you do that?
No. No, he had this thing and he laughs about it too because
Okay.
he goes to like restaurants and people ask to move tables because they're scared of him.
What? Okay,
Yeah,
no,
it's
he's
like
not
a whole
scary.
thing. It's crazy.
It's just he
Anyway.
doesn't look his age. I thought he was so much older.
No, he didn't, but his whole story kind of fell down a rabbit hole. It's really interesting because the movie people thought he was a lot older.
Oh, really?
And was like, what are you doing here? You're
Fair
supposed
enough.
to be a 12-year-old. And they're like,
Fair enough.
actually, you can't, you're doing something.
See, and I thought that was just a matter of height, you know, like some people, the way that directors can film, like they can make you taller or shorter depending on like how the scenery is set, like Tom Cruise is like 4 foot nothing, right?
That's true, yeah.
And he looks like a giant on screen, right? So I thought maybe they were doing the opposite.
No, that's true. It's just like, a height thing. But I don't think, but his presence and the way he commands the screen is so brilliant.
Mm-hmm.
You wouldn't even,
Yeah, no,
like,
that's fair.
height, never, I actually think that his height is brilliant for, like, that makes no sense. But for the casting, it makes sense. Malachi's like a tree,
Yeah, he's so
but
tall.
Isaac commands. Anyway.
That's fair, yeah.
Okay, and then here's a little fun fact about Malachi. So during his audition for the role of Malachi, Courtney Gaines pretended to hold a casting assistant hostage with a prop knife that he brought from home.
That is such a Malachi move.
Yeah, and they're like, okay, you got the part.
You got the part. Well, I mean, could you imagine if they said no to him? Like,
Like, what'd you
Jesus. Good fun facts. Wow.
We only get two, sorry guys.
Book recommendations.
They'll get you to Malachi.
Okay, so I have 2 movies and a couple of books. Sorry.
When we said one,
Okay, but like, you know, okay, one of them is a novella, also by Stephen King, 1922.
I'll allow it.
It's a movie on Netflix as well.
Oh, wow.
Really good. It talks about like the agropolitics that I was mentioning earlier about vegetation, right, and like the dark period of agriculture. Similar to that is the other Netflix movie, In the Tall Grass. Again, it's talking about like how the grass is like bending to its own will and like they get captured and like it's a whole, you know, just watch it. It's also really good. So those are the 2 movies I would recommend. If you haven't read Children of the Corn, the book, The Night Shift contains all, or at least some, of Stephen King's novellas, so you can pick that up. I mentioned during the podcast 5 Little Indians and 7 Fallen Feathers, which are books written by Indigenous peoples or in collaboration with Indigenous peoples, and it really kind of showcases the realities of what religion did to the Indigenous population, because I don't feel like a lot of people know about that or aren't understanding of what actually happened. So one is more of a fictional or loosely based adaptation, and then one is more of a, you know, well researched with footnotes and like more of a understanding of what actually went on. So those 2 books, absolutely, if you want to talk about like what religion is and why we're talking about the love and compassionate part.
Hold on, I have to pull up a quote. I should have gotten this ready earlier.
Are you quoting yourself too?
I am. I'm actually going to quote myself on Goodreads.
Oh my god.
Okay, no, I'm not going to quote myself.
Check out Sophia's Goodreads.
I'm going to quote a quote that I quoted in Goodreads. Okay, so for my recommendation, I went with The Ritual by Adam Neville. I gotta get close, because this is a really good cover. I'm really vibing with this cover.
A+ cover.
Hold on. It's just gonna be blurry. Okay, anyway, you should read that. You should get this cover. Okay, anyway, this is also a Netflix movie. Don't watch the movie. Discard it, don't even worry about it. So this is The Ritual by Adam Neville. A lot of people either love or hate this book, and there's a reason for that. There are unofficially 2 parts. The first part follows a group of friends in the woods, and they're being followed by something. And the second part takes a huge turn, and it ends up kind of like a hostage situation, and there's a lot going on. The reason why I chose this was how it discusses religion and how it discusses deities and false gods. Because if you've seen the movie The Ritual, there is this otherworldly creature that eventually appears. It's not a spoiler, that happens in the book. Like, we all know an ominous entity is around. So this is a quote that one of the characters says: "If only we could all stand up, all of us who have died unjustly for the gods of the insane, there would be so many of us."
Wow.
So powerful! And that quote is actually like a whole paragraph long. I just took my favorite little bit from it. The second part is so brilliantly written, and it follows... I don't want to give spoilers because I really want you to read the book, and it's really different from the movie. I'm struggling. Basically, it discusses how far people are willing to go for like a cult situation, a false god. How people are manipulated and how savage people can be under like that false pretense. I really don't want to say too much, so I'm trying to be as broad as possible because you really should read this book.
It's for me. Yes, exactly. Maybe put in the comments what you think we should talk about next.
Comment below your favorite cult.
Yes, most liked comment, Sophia's gonna join that cult.
Great.
You know, actually, me and my colleague have been talking about wanting to do an ethnographic analysis, or like going and experiencing a cult and like just writing about our experiences and then publishing on it. And we were talking about the logistics of it, and he was like, what if I actually get sucked in? And I'm like, oh no. That'd be so cool.
You never know.
Yeah.
You know, like they could offer some good stuff and you'd be like,
don't drink the Kool-Aid. Don't drink the Kool-Aid.
No, you sat in a cult.
I did sit in on a cult meeting. That's right. The
That's
Children of
true
Aslan.
story. True story.
We're not going to get too far into it. This is not a promotion for the Children of Aslan, but yes, I did sit at a campfire with them. Kool-Aid was passed around. I'm not even kidding. It was purple Kool-Aid, like no word of a lie, and cookies as well. And that was probably the most funny but like terrifying experience of my life.
And
I will absolutely do it again.
Our mom, like, beside going,
Don't eat it. Don't do it. Don't do it.
She's like sitting there. And what were they singing? What were they singing?
I can't sing it because we're gonna get copyrighted. But my bunny lies over the ocean.
Bonnie lies over the ocean.
I sing that to this day because I think it's so funny.
Yeah. So comment that cult down below, and we'll go ahead and join that.
Do not also give them hate either. This was, like I said, it was the most fun experience.
They were so nice.
They were
legitimately so nice. Thank you guys so much for watching. As always, if you'd like to hear us talk about a movie, let us know down below. You can give this a like, you can subscribe. If you want to support my channel even further, you can follow me on Instagram. Head over to my Amazon wish list and buy me a book that might be recommended on this show.
Woo! We will read them and we will tell you if they suck or if they rock.
Absolutely. Okay, and I think that's all from me.
Bye!
They'll get you too, Malachi.
Okay.